Welcome to the first of our four-part kvCore Spring Fling, brought to you by Leaders Edge Network. In session 1, we kick off spring by planting the seeds, how to create your own custom newsletter. Okay, so it's just at the top of the hour on Wednesday. It's 10 o'clock, and this is the first Wednesday in April. And what we're going to be doing each Wednesday in April is taking an hour to dive a little bit further into kvCore. As you know, we've put together some training videos for our Leaders Edge Network agents to be able to help them set up their kvCore, to get set up with their website, with their CRM, and even with some lead generation, really fully utilizing the platform. Now we're going to take each week in April to talk about one particular aspect or functionality of kvCore that gets you a little bit deeper in, helps you take advantage a little bit more of the technology to get in front of your clients, all in the vein of spring. Today, what we're going to talk about is how you can plant seeds with your clients using newsletters. You know it's important that you remind those in your sphere, past clients, leads that you receive from various sources. You want to always be in the forefront of their minds. And a newsletter generated within kvCore and distributed to your sphere or to whatever contacts you designate can be a really powerful tool, zero cost, to help you do that and to help you stay in the forefront, to help you be that first person someone thinks of when they need to buy or sell a home. I want to show you first, I've shared my screen. I want to give an example of what a newsletter might look like. This is a newsletter that I use with my team. So I'm leveraging the newsletter format on a regular basis to prepare a monthly distribution to my team, Connection Realtors, to make sure that we're all on the same page, whether it be about team events or new things happening within the team, new programs that we're unveiling, or if there are news items that I think are important to share. Maybe new information comes from the broker's office, for example. I really try to make sure that I'm including that so that this newsletter is jam-packed with content, that it's valuable content. The goal is that you want this to be leveraged. You don't just want it to end up, getting deleted from somebody's inbox as fast as it appears. Okay, you want to make it resourceful. So that's what we're going to talk about today and how you might build a newsletter for your clients. What you'll notice as I just sort of scroll through my most recent newsletter is that you'll see the way I like to design a newsletter. I sort of have breaks in between each topic that I'm covering. And I also, you'll notice, tend to use a lot of these buttons and illustrations. I think it's important to keep your reader engaged with color and variety. And by using buttons like these in your newsletter, you can go back and review within kvCore how many clicks those buttons are getting. So that's going to tell you, you may not be able to see if somebody clicked on, kvCore can't quite tell you how many people clicked on this RSVP button versus this Zoom link button, but they will tell you if there are clicks. So what information that gives you is that, okay, I'm engaging my recipients. They are reading this, they're finding value in it. And so I'm going to continue to pursue this and maybe even ramp up my frequency. Okay, so this is just an example of what I do for my team. What we're going to do today is create a newsletter, nothing crazy, but again, with the idea of I want to show you how you can very simply engage your reader without it being just a straight, let me sort of throw up real estate all over you kind of thing. How you can engage the reader kind of coming in the back door, and how you can make sure that you're building in those buttons and that functionality so that you know that you are indeed engaging your clients. So what I want to take you to first is I'm going to bring you over to Word. One of the things that I really encourage you to do, I've done it here in Word so that I could easily share it with you on my screen. But what I really encourage you to do is outline on paper what you want to cover in your newsletter. And if you can, even take so far as to do like I did and create a document. What I'm going to do today, what I the topic that I would like to center my newsletter around today is Discover Burlington County. So if you take a look at my website, this is my EXP website, you'll notice that I have some nods to Burlington County. Discover Burlington County is here on my homepage. I mentioned Burlington County in my tagline. So I really try to hone in on Burlington County. So what I've done is I've put together some topics on things that I want to cover around that theme of discovering Burlington County. What I want to do is give my recipients some interesting content, some maybe ideas of how they might want to spend their time, especially as we are sort of feeling like we're coming around the back end of the pandemic. People are getting out more. They're excited to get out more. So I'm hoping that I really see a lot of engagement within this theme. What I'm going to do is, just like you saw sections in my team newsletter, I'm going to do a section that covers each of these topics. So I'm going to do outdoors, historic, family fun, wineries, breweries, and good eats. It's an important one. And then the last one is where I want to wrap up with me, with, owning a home in Burlington County. That's where I want to sort of round it out, make myself available as a real estate professional. And again, just continue to remind people in a subtle way that, hey, here's all these great things to do, and remember me for your real estate needs. This is very much, this type of format is in line with how I like to go about selling real estate. If you wanted your newsletter to be much more real estate centric, if you wanted to talk about trends and recent sales activity, or if you wanted to refer more to your resume and expertise, you absolutely do that. This is about customizing to you. What I just would reiterate, like I said at the beginning, is that you want to make sure that you are building in ways to go back and validate that people are not only opening the email, but they're clicking in the email. So buttons are going to be a big deal. So what I did is I prepared, as these are my sections, I sort of broke out my sections. I stuck the website link that I'm going to tag into my button. I'm going to show you how to do that today on my newsletter here. And then I also, in advance, wrote the script that I can now simply copy and paste into my newsletter. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to jump over to my kvCore. I'm already logged in here. And what we're going to do is, on the left-hand side, in order to start a newsletter, you want to go to marketing. And you can either go to all marketing or smart campaigns. I'm just going to head right to smart campaigns. If you've never done anything with a campaign or a template before in kvCore, it's important that you understand that kvCore itself, with the help of EXP, puts forth a ton of pre-designed content for you. If you decide to use that pre-designed content, what you're going to do is create a clone. When you create a clone, it's going to create a copy of that template for you to use without changing, editing, or compromising that original kvCore template. Okay, so that one sort of still stays intact. What we're going to do today is we're going to go to templates. Later on in the month of April, just as an aside, so today we're talking about one template, one document, one newsletter. Later in the month of April, we're going to get into campaigns where we're talking about stacking different events, whether it be a combination of an email, a newsletter, a text message, a phone call, how to build out a whole campaign of multiple events to be able to reach out to your clients, to your sphere, etc. Okay, so for today, we're going to concentrate on the newsletter. I want to show you really, if you just take your time, plan in advance, how you can really easily put something like this together with just a couple of hours of your time each month or each quarter. And again, it doesn't cost you anything. There's no printing charge, there's no postage charge, and it's one more way you're going to get in front of your clients. Okay. So when I went into Smart Campaigns, I went to the buttons at the top and I chose templates. And right from here, I'm going to go into this search box and I'm going to type the word newsletter and hit the magnifying glass to search. Okay, so here I see newsletter. You'll notice that there are a few other items with the word newsletter in it. That's because, like I said, I'm using this for my monthly team newsletter. So here are the iterations for each month. And you can see what I did is as I made each new copy, I would make sure to add a date. So if I need to go back and reference one, I can quickly see the date in the title of my document and pull what I'm looking for without having to go into each one. In this case, if I look at the one that's just labeled newsletter, you'll notice all the way over to the right-hand side, I can't edit this document. The only thing that I can do is clone it. That's your clue that this is a kvCore template, okay, from scratch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and hit the clone button, okay? When you do that, a new box will come up. Just moving everybody's head here. A new box will come up and you'll see that it's giving us the name newsletter with the word copy in parentheses. You can leave it that way, but what I really strongly suggest that you do is that you change something in the template name that will make it easy for you to search later. In this case, and you'll see what I mean in a minute, I'm going to wipe this out and I'm going to put Deanna sample newsletter. I put my name in there because whenever I see my name in the title of a template, that's my first key that I know this is something that I've created and edited, okay? So once I go ahead and do that, I'm just going to go down to the bottom of this window and hit clone template. Once I hit clone, it's going to take me back to that original search screen that I was at. Now I'm going to go back and instead of searching newsletter, I'm going to go ahead and search Deanna. Click on my magnifying glass and you'll see I've gone in here and through trainings and some of the things that I've done have created a few customized templates. But here we are. Here's my Deanna sample newsletter. Now, if I look all the way over to the right-hand side, not only do I have the ability to clone it or copy it again, but I have the ability to edit it. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to edit it. So now I'm going to click on the edit button. And you'll see that the newsletter appears. Now, I will say right off the bat that I encourage you to go through this process a couple of times to get comfortable with the format. I have worked with a number of technology platforms. This particular window is not necessarily my favorite, especially even just for little things. Like I wish I could enlarge it to have it take up my whole screen. But I can't figure out a way to do that. But like I said, once you've gone through it a few times, the process is going to get a lot easier. Okay. So when you see at the top, when you open that edit, when you click on that edit button, it's going to show you that you're in Deanna's sample newsletter. And then it's going to show you within the window as you scroll down, all of the content that it's designed for you to now go in and customize. You'll see in a lot of places the verbiage that's here is Latin. That's designed to make sure that you don't send this out, that you understand that it's not a pre-formatted newsletter that you can just sort of plug and play. This is one that's entirely you designing it and building it and editing the content yourself. Okay. So the way that this works is you can click on any individual section of the newsletter. So you see here, I clicked on the agent header, and now I've got a blue outline around that section. And you'll see on the left, or excuse me, on the right-hand side, what I can do to change that, the properties of that particular section. What I like to do, me personally, is I'm going to go ahead and delete this header. It'll ask me if I'm sure, so I'm going to go ahead and delete it. And then I'm also, if I look at this next section, I'm going to delete this one also. And now I'm going to look over here to the right-hand side. The reason that I deleted it is because I want to create something. You'll notice the first one that I deleted said agent header. The second one that I deleted was just one section. If I go over to the right-hand side and I click on rows, so you'll see content, rows, and settings. If I click on rows, This was the second option that I deleted. It was just one big space. What I'd like to do is I'd like to put in a row that has two spaces. One might be larger, one smaller, or maybe two equal spaces. I think I'm going to go ahead and go with one larger, one smaller, and I like the smaller one to be on the right-hand side. So all I'm simply going to do, and again, just be patient working your mouse because it does take a little bit of maneuvering to get used to working in this window. But once I decide that this is the one that I want, you see I'm going to take my mouse with my little hand and I'm simply going to drag it over to my template, to my newsletter template. Once I drag it over, that blue line with the drag it here bubble appears. So that tells me where it will drop this new section being inserted in my newsletter. So that's where I'm going to go ahead and drop it. Okay, so now I have that larger section on the left, the smaller section on the right. So I've sort of put in that space placeholder, but now I need to tell my newsletter what type of content I'm going to put in each of these spaces. So that's where I'm going to head back over to content. And I'm going to make one of these spaces text and one of these spaces image. So image, I'm going to do in the smaller space. So I'm just going to drag the image button, the image tile, over to that smaller space. And then this left-hand side, I'm going to go ahead and scroll down to find text. And I'm going to make this a text block. So I'm going to go ahead and make this, drag that text right on over. Now what I can do is I can give my newsletter a name in the text block. So remember I said I'm going to call it Discovering Burlington County. And I'm going to make it larger, which I can do right from here, right from within my text box. You'll see as long as my cursor is in the text box, all these text format options will appear just like they would if I were working in a spreadsheet or a word processing package, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and make this bold. And maybe I can even go a little bit bigger. So again, this is going to be about you sort of playing around, getting comfortable with the formatting, finding a style that you like. The other thing I want to do, you'll notice on my team newsletter, I mentioned I'm a fan of color and variety to capture my recipient's attention. So you can go ahead and change the color of your font. So I'm just going to go with this bright blue because I really like that. Kind of goes with that orange and blue EXP theme as well. So subliminal messaging there. Okay, so I have my text. Now I can go back and add additional text here, but first I want to go ahead and drop in an image. The way that you do that is you just click on this browse button right within the image box. There is a folder that sits within your kvCore where you can upload JPEG images. It's important that you go with JPEG images because if you don't, oftentimes the formatting will be a problem. You're going to have to go back and repeat the process. So you'll see on occasion I have like a PNG file, but they tend to be a little bit problematic. So like I said, I really encourage just from the start, when you're in that planning mode like I was here, make sure that you're also planning your images, your photos that you want to upload, your illustrations that you want to upload in JPEG format. So what I'm going to do for my initial, I'm going to choose from something that maybe I already uploaded in my kvCore. So you'll see I have a number of, I personally have a Shutterstock account that I subscribe to because I use images a lot. There are a number of free sites that you can also go to get free images that you don't have to worry about copywriting. Just make sure that you know where you're pulling your images from. Make sure that you don't have issues with where you're pulling links. You want to make sure that you are not violating any copyright or infringement protections that are in place. Okay, so let's just say I like this welcome. Let's just go with this one. So you'll see once I click on it to insert it, it took me right back to my newsletter and it inserted the photo, the image right there in that box. So now what I want to do is maybe I want to add some additional text here. Let's see. So, but I don't want it to be as large. So maybe I'll go down a few points, and maybe also for reading text, I'll go with black. So inviting you to learn about, experience firsthand all of the fun and educational joy in this great county, New Jersey. Okay. So there we go. Let's say that that's my verbiage. I'm also, with formatting, I really like justification. So I'm kind of big on doing right and left justification. I just think that adds to the cleanness of the look. The other thing that I might do here is just add a return here just to give a little bit of spacing. And if I change the size of the spacing, that'll just make it a little bit tighter. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and move off of that for a second so that to get rid of that formatting so you can see a little bit more clearly what I've done. Now, if I wanted to go back and play with this, take a quick look at my team newsletter again. Okay, so see how I feel like there's a lot more vibrancy here that I want to be able to capture in my actual newsletter that we're building. So maybe when I'm done and I go back and reevaluate the whole newsletter, I might decide that I don't like this image, that it's just not vibrant enough to draw me in from the first visual look. So what I could do is very easily click on the image again so that you see that blue outline around the image. I can come over to the right-hand side, just click on Change Image. It's going to take me right back to all of the photos and all of the images that I've already uploaded. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to use the same one here that I used in my team newsletter and insert it. So now I feel like this changes the look of my, like I said, that initial greeting that I'm giving to my reader. Okay, so that's where I'm going to leave my header. Now let me get started in pulling in, copying and pasting all that content that I built in my Word document. Remember what I said, that so much of what is here in this format is here from kvCore to give you a starting point, but you're going to have to go in and edit each of these sections yourself. So for me, what I actually oftentimes will do is just delete a section that doesn't make sense to me. So I sort of already have my header and my intro at the top. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete this next section. Again, I'm just clicking on the trash can, and then it'll just prompt you to make sure that you do want to go ahead and delete it. You'll see that the pre-designed format does have a break. It puts that line in there that I can go ahead and separate out one topic to the next, but maybe I want it to be thicker and I want it to be in color. I think, again, adding visually to the appeal of the newsletter. Simply click on it to get that blue outline around it. Once you do that, you're going to make all your editing changes on the right-hand side, formatting wise. So I can click on this number. So see how it's growing in thickness, that line. And then I can also click here. Right now it's a gray tile, but if I click on it, it's going to give me a whole grid of color options that I can work through. Maybe I wanted to do something in the greens, but I already told you I'm kind of a sucker for the blue. So I'm going to go ahead and pick out something blue that sort of goes in line not only with my image, but also with my header as well. If I wanted to make sure that I was using the same blue consistently throughout the newsletter, what you can just simply do is make sure once you find a shade that you like, make note of this code right here. You'll see this 2241D5. That refers to the exact gradient formulation, for lack of a better word, for that color. So that I could go back over to my verbiage and I could click on the colors over here, the text colors, like I could highlight this. I could click on this text color and I could change that number to match the formulation number that was on this line, this 2241D5. Okay, you don't have to, but you certainly can if you wanted to have that level of consistency. So now let's dive into copying and pasting that content that I told you about. Let me hop back over to my pre-planned Word document. So the first thing that I was going to tackle was outdoors. And the place that I chose for my newsletter is Black Run Preserve. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop back over to my newsletter. And I'm going to put, and let me just show you an example on my newsletter too on the. So here's an example in my team newsletter. You'll notice that I have in capitals from the New Jersey broker's office. And then in upper and lowercase, I have fair housing. From the New Jersey broker's office is a topic, a section of my newsletter that I repeat every month. It's just the actual content, whether it's fair housing or clear cooperation, whatever the topic is what changes the secondary line. So I'm going to kind of follow that same format in what we're building here. So I'm going to do outdoors, and then I'm going to hit return, and then I'm going to put in upper and lowercase, Black Run Preserve. Okay, again, you have your text formatting box there because you're in a text box in the newsletter. So I can go ahead right here and highlight this text and change it to that blue that I enjoy so much. I can also turn off or turn on bold or italics if I wanted to make this secondary line italics, for example. Maybe I don't like that, I get rid of it. You can do a lot of formatting and have some fun with it, okay? Again, always concentrating on the visual appeal. I'm going to get rid of the line for the author. That doesn't apply here. And what I can even do, that text message, the text formatting always comes up, but you can kind of see right below it that blue outline is there. I removed the name of the author, but I really want to get rid of that box altogether. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit the trash can. It'll ask me if I'm sure I want to do it, and I'm sure. Okay. Now I'm into the text box where I want to go back to my Word document. Again, I did all my work ahead of time. I spent some time reviewing the website about the preserve, pulling in what I thought were a few captivating details about the site, what about the site might appeal to my reader, and came up with, this paragraph. So now I'm going to simply copy it from Word. I'm going to hop back over to the newsletter, and I'm going to highlight all of the Latin and paste. Okay, and see how it's gone ahead and taken that verbiage and dropped it right into my newsletter. Now I just have to do a little bit of formatting. Okay, I want it to be a little bit bigger. This font is a little bit small for me. So I'm going to try going with 14. I already mentioned, I already disclosed I'm big on justification. I just think it adds to the cleanness of the newsletter. I'm just going to click off of this for a second so you can see how this looks. Okay, so I've put in my header. I've put in my verbiage about the site. There are two other things that I need to do before this section is complete. I need to drop in my image, and I also need to do something with my button here at the bottom. Remember, buttons are important. It's going to tell you how engaged your readers are. So let's first deal with our image. I'm going to click on Browse because I want to get to that folder of images. But in this case, I have not actually uploaded these images for these locations yet. Not all of them. I did upload one of them, but I want to show you how you would actually upload images. So let's say you did like I did. You decided to go with locations to highlight in your particular real estate neck of the woods, and you have them ready to go, whether they're on your desktop of your computer or in a separate folder, but you know the location on your computer. That's what's important. What you can do when this folder opens, simply click on the blue upload button. I know that I stuck all of my images in the downloads folder. I already pulled in Black Run Preserve, but I'm going to go ahead now as I'm showing you, and I'm going to pull in these other 3 images simply by clicking on them. Okay, and then click open. You'll see it's telling me that it's in progress. and it'll take a few seconds, but then ultimately it's going to drop those images. See if I can scroll down in this window. So you'll see it dropped in the prison, the winery, and the funplex. And like I said, I had already dropped in the preserve. Since I'm working in the preserve section, I'm going to go ahead and insert that photo here in my newsletter. The other thing that I can do is if I wanted it to be a larger picture, and I think maybe what I'll do is I'll show you this with the prison, for example. You have the option of, like, so far with my header, I did a left and right. So a left text and a right image. With my outdoors section, I did a left image and a right text. But you can also change it up, do top and bottom, for example, maybe an image at the top of your section, and then the verbiage and the header about that location at the bottom. Okay, and I can show you that in the next section. So the only other thing that we have to address is our button. So now I'm going to stick my mouse on the button. Remember that once I do that, any of the content formatting that has to happen for that button is going to happen on the right-hand side under Content Properties. Okay, I am using this button as a link to another website, to the website that tells all about Black Rum Preserve. So I'm going to quickly hop back over to my Word document, and I'm going to copy this link that I stuck here, and I'm going to go back to kvCore. And on that right-hand side, you'll see that there's a box for you to go ahead and stick the URL. Okay, so that's what I've gone ahead and done here is I've stuck the URL right into the URL box. The other thing that I want to do is I want to change how this button looks in my newsletter. So I don't want it to be learn more. I'm actually going to use visit Black Rum Preserve. Okay. And then the only other thing that I want to do is I like my color theme. So I'm going to scroll down on the right-hand side where all that formatting happens. I'm going to find the background color for my button. I'm going to click on it. And maybe this time I might want to go with an orange. You will notice that it will recall some of your most recent selections. So maybe if I wanted to stick with blue, if I really wanted to be consistently blue, I could go ahead and choose that as well. Okay, so I'm going to try and, again, because this box is not, I really wish it was a full screen. That would be the first piece of advice I would give kvCore is give me a full screen for this newsletter. But there's our first section. Does anybody have any questions or comments or aren't sure maybe how I did something there? Want to see something again? We are going to go through it a couple more times with these other sections. Okay, good. All right, so at the bottom of this section, to sort of close it out and give us a break to get to the next one, we have another one of those break lines. I'm just going to go back up here and remind myself that I went with a thickness of 5. So down here, I'm going to do the same thing. Go with a thickness of 5 for consistency's sake. And then I'm going to go ahead and pick on, select, see, here's that 224 number. And if you just run your mouse over these most recent color choice tiles, you'll be able to see what that formulation is. Okay, so there's our first one, outdoors. Let's take a look back at where we're at next. So the next one's going to be historic. Okay, so how about we try some of that top bottom that I talked about. So we're going to sneak back over to our kvCore. I'm going to go ahead and click on rows, and I'm going to find first, I want to put in one big image block. So I'm going to, you can see the finickiness with the mouse. So you have a slide rule here, you have a slide rule here among these options, and then you have a slide rule here within your newsletter. So what I'm going to do is first for my image, I'm going to go ahead and choose this really large, full left to right image box. And once I drag it over to my newsletter, you'll see that that light blue drag it here box is right below my break line. That's where I want it. Okay. And then I want to put in one left to right text box. So I'm going to put in a second box right below it, like this. Okay. Now I've dropped in the space holders, but now I have to tell my newsletter what type of content I'm putting there. So that's we're going to hop back over to content. My top is going to be my image. So I'm going to put that right in here. Okay, so see how it makes that first block an image. Then I'm going to make my second block a text. Okay, so we're going to go and do my second location was someplace historic. So I'm going to go ahead and find in all those photos that I have uploaded the photo of the prison. I'm going to insert it. Okay, so see how it made that photo. Now it's taking up, rather than just be a small piece here, it's going to take up the full space left to right. I could always go back, because if I were rethinking formatting, I would love for this image here of nature to be a full left to right, as opposed to the prison. I would probably reverse it. The challenge with the newsletter is that you can't just click on this and simply change it without sort of throwing off the formatting of this whole section. It would be a lot easier for you to delete this whole section by clicking on it like this. So see how I clicked out in this gray area, as opposed to if I clicked in the white, it would just think I'm talking about the text box. If I click out in the gray, then it's recognizing this whole chunk, this whole section of my newsletter. So if I really wanted to redo it, it would be a lot easier to just delete it and go ahead and insert two full left to right rows, just like we did now for the prison section. Okay. You can also, if you need to, just to show you along the lines of rows and content, not only can you drag in an image box or a text box, but you'll see that there are other options here too. If you needed a divider and there wasn't one already there, you can simply insert one using this divider button. If you needed to insert a button to be able to create a link in your newsletter, you can just use this button tile here to drag and drop and then format it, like I'll show you a couple more times we're going to do here. Okay, so here's the prison. So I'm going to stay consistent with what I've done up here, outdoors and Black Run Preserve. So I'm going to start here. Now I'm going to do historic, and I'm going to do Burlington County Prison. I want to make sure that I keep with my formatting. This was 18. So I'll simply choose 18. And then I'm going to make sure to click on this little caret to get my favorite blue and bold it. So there it's going to be consistent. Okay. Now I can go ahead and just hit enter and go back to my standard black, my 14 point. I'm going to go hop over to my Word where I pre-planned everything and just do another copy and paste. So I think you're kind of hopefully getting the gist of why it's so helpful to plan out your content ahead of time. Because when you get to this screen and you're in kvCore, you want to be able to just concentrate on building the actual newsletter, not thinking through your content. You want the content to be the easiest piece of this puzzle at this point. Okay, so here I've gone ahead and pasted in the information about Burlington County Prison. I'm going to go ahead and do my justification and just make sure that I have my text on black. Okay. So that's my second section. Anybody questions so far on any of that formatting? Okay. So now I've done my outdoors, but I got to do my button. So here's a perfect example of how we don't have a button and need to add a button in this section. So I'm going to scroll back to the right-hand side. I'm going to hit on a row. Or actually, let me see if I can, I think I can just enter a button right within this text box. Let's give it a try. So I'm going to click on button and I'm going to drag it right over. See where it has that drag it here. So it should drop it. There it goes right in below my verbiage about the prison. So Here I might type learn more, or maybe I want to stay consistent. How about visit Burlington County Prison? Okay. But I want to make sure I do, so I'm going to do 14. I'm going to change my, whoops, I got to highlight the actual text first. There we go. Now I can change it to 14. And I also want to keep my button color consistent. So that formatting has to happen on the right-hand side. So I'm just going to scroll down, find that background color box, click on it. And remember, it's going to recall the most recent selections. So I'm going to stay with the 2241D5. Okay. The only other thing I have to do is go back to my notes and grab that URL. So I want to make sure I don't get any extra. So copy that, hop back over to kvCore, go back up on the right-hand side, find that URL box and paste it right in there. Okay, so now I've got 2 sections done of my newsletter. One thing that's really important is that you want to make sure that you're saving regularly. I say this from experience because I have gotten through 3, 4, 5 sections of a newsletter, only to every once in a while I do something funky when I'm importing an image into my newsletter, and I end up completely closing out of the newsletter and don't save my changes. So again, this comes from experience. We've got a couple of sections done, so let's go ahead and save our work. The way that we're going to do that is you're going to just click on this Update Template button in the bottom left-hand corner. The downside of that is that when you click on that box, it's going to save all the work that you've done, but it's also going to exit you out of the newsletter. So to get back into it, to continue working, you simply have to go back to where we were at the very start. Remember, I named it Deanna Sample Newsletter. So I'm going to search Deanna again. I'm going to find my document. And I'm just going to go right back in to edit it some more. You'll see once it brings it back up, now it's going to go ahead and remember what we've already done. So see how our sections are preserved. And we're ready to move on to the next section. I want to create another divider between here and the next section where we're going to talk about family fun. So I'm going to go ahead and use that divider tile, and I want it to come in right under the Burlington County Prison button, the link. Okay, and there you'll see it divided, it dropped in that divider line. I'm going to click on it so that the blue highlight covers just that line. Do some quick formatting, change my thickness, change my color, and then I'm ready to go on to the next section. Now the next section of formatting is set up with text on the left, image on the right, which I kind of like. I like the variety. Remember, we've done a little bit of left and right and left, top and bottom. So now let's go back to having an image on the right. I'm going to go, let's just do the image while we're there. So our next section was family fun. And in family fun, I'm going to highlight a cool family location called Funplex. So I'm going to bring in my picture of the Funplex. Now I'm ready to work on my text. So I'm going to put family fun in all caps, consistent with my formatting, and Funplex. Sticking with 18, but I do need to change my font color, and I'm going to keep it bold. I'm going to come down to that author line. So I want to go ahead and delete that line. I don't need that. And now I'm going to go ahead and copy in my verbiage. I'm going to scroll down to my next section, which is my family fun section. Take all my little tidbits that I already prepared, highlight them and copy them, jump back over to kvCore, and I'm going to paste them right over all of the Latin language that was there as a placeholder. Last thing I need to do for my text is I just want to go change the size and the justification. so I get that clean left to right look. Okay, so now we've got my title, my verbiage, my photo. The only other thing I want to do for this section is my button. So I'm going to click on the button so that my mouse is somewhere on the Learn More button itself. Go back over to my notes and grab that link. Copy that. Jump back to kvCore. Stick my link in there. And then I'm going to change the color here. And I just want to change what it says. Visit Funplex. Okay. Now there are so many different things, as we wrap up with these last couple of sections, there are so many different things that you can do to create a catching newsletter for your recipients. Maybe it's about highlighting different businesses in one particular town or in a county. And maybe in highlighting the businesses, maybe you invite business owners to write bios about themselves or share a tidbit of history so you're just sort of copying and pasting their information into your newsletter. Maybe you have a charity that is really important to you and you work with different businesses in your area to support that charity. And you want to highlight not only the charity, but the businesses that you're partnering with to deliver value to that charity. You can create a newsletter all centered around that. So there could be a reason why you might want to have an author line, for example, that we happen to be deleting here. But if you want to have multiple contributors to your newsletter, you want to make sure that you're acknowledging them. And again, whatever you're doing, just make sure that you're delivering value to your reader. If you did want to center on real estate and didn't want to really deviate from that wheelhouse, then if you wanted to bring in a mortgage professional, a title professional, maybe a homeowner's insurance professional, an appraiser, an inspector, you can build a group of 5 or 6 professionals that if you are going to work with them on a regular basis, ask them to give you a paragraph of content every month about a particular topic. Maybe you bring in a stager that will give a little tidbit of how to properly or effectively stage a house, a tidbit about appraisals or how the appraisal process works, a problem often seen in inspections, whatever the case may be. There are so many things that you can do. Don't be afraid to be creative. The idea is that you just want to make sure that you're going to get clicks, that you're going to get action, that the readers are not just going to, like I said, delete out as fast as it populates in. Okay, so let's go ahead. We have our divider line that's here. So I want to keep it consistent, going with thickness of 5, going with our same color. Okay, so if I just hop back over to my notes, the last location that I want to highlight is a winery under my wineries, breweries, and good eats. So I'm just going to quickly go through, and how about we do another top and bottom here. So I'm just going to delete this whole section that's in my pre-formatted template. And then I'm going to go up into my rows and I'm going to drop in 2 full left to right rows. There's my first one. There's my second one. I'm going to make the image the first box and the text the second box. Okay, so you'll just notice each time that I dragged over these tiles, I just made sure that I was happy with wherever it said drag it here. I made sure that that was the location where I wanted it before I let go of my mouse. Okay, just scroll back down. Okay, so here for my winery, I'm going to click on Browse. It'll take a second, depending on how many photos you might accumulate. It might take a few seconds to pull up this folder. I'm going to go ahead and click on the winery. Okay, so I got those nice vibrant grapes there. Now I'm ready to do my text. So I'm going to click into my text box and I'm doing wineries, breweries, and good eats. Okay, and I am going to highlight Valenzano Winery. I'm going to highlight the whole text that I've typed in so far. I want to make sure that I go with 18, that I bold it, and then I go with my happy blue. Okay. Once I do that, I just hit return. So you see I'm still with that blue outline in my text box. Jumping over to my Word, I'm going to copy my verbiage, go back to my newsletter, and paste it in. We're already at 14, so I'm just going to make sure that I get my justification, make sure that my text is also black, and I'm going to add a return right under the header just to give it that additional spacing that I think is important. Okay. So now I have information about the winery. Only thing that I'm missing is my button. So let me just scroll down, get to the right place in my newsletter, then click on content, and I want to drag over a button. So I'm going to take that tile, happy with where it's going to drop it, and let my mouse go. If I click into the button, I can change the words, the verbiage that's on the button itself. So visit Valenzano Winery. Then I'm going to, on the right-hand side, want to change the color, the formatting. So find that 224 number. And I need to copy in my URL. So hop back over to my cheat sheet, copy, and paste my link. Okay. Now the last thing that I want to do is the information about myself. So home ownership in Burlington County. So I'm going to go, since this is already done, I'm going to go right into this section that's here, and I'm going to click on Browse. Now this one's going to be personal to me. So you'll notice that everything that I've done so far has not been about real estate, has not been about me, and has not been about my brokerage. Okay, so now this is where I'm going to tie it all in and hopefully get on people's radar after they've enjoyed the content that I've shared with them. So I'm going to find my headshot, which I have uploaded in my kvCore, and I'm going to insert it. And then I'm going to change my title to Home Ownership in Burlington County. I can get rid of this author line because the way that I'm formatting my newsletter, we already talked about how that doesn't apply. I'm going to go with, I want to highlight all this text so I can make sure to change the color. There we go. Change the color. Stay with 18. Keep it bold. There you go. I'm going to copy and paste. Don't want to miss that punctuation. Copy and paste it right here. Do some quick formatting with my font size, my justification. Make sure that it's black font. That's what I want. Okay. And then my button. There's already a button here. So I'm just going to go ahead and change it to visit my website. Change the color. And I'm going to grab my URL. This is my EXP website. You can use this, or if you have a like another domain that you're using that forwards to your EXP email, or excuse me, website, you could certainly, whatever that domain is, just enter it here. And then the last thing that I'll do, now you'll notice that there's still more content happening. There are a few more sections in this pre-formatted template that I may or may not leverage, but it's here to design and designed to give you formatting options. So if you like this like left column, right column, you could do something like that. Or you'll notice down here, they even did 3 columns. I like to use this at the end of my team newsletter. I like to do this for maybe like event reminders, highlighting if somebody had birthdays or a special anniversary, something maybe here. And then maybe a quick reminder that doesn't need a big section of my newsletter, but maybe just like a super quick reminder of don't forget to pay your dues, your board dues, something like that. But so again, this is designed to let you know that all the ways that you can add variety and uniqueness to your newsletter. In this case, I don't need these sections. So if I just highlight the whole section by going out to that gray space around the border of the newsletter, I can just put my mouse there and then the trash can will appear and it will let me go ahead and delete this section. The other thing that you can do, I just want to show you while we're here, here's that 2-column section. Let's say I click on the gray space and I actually wanted to use this format, but I didn't like 2 equal columns. Take a look over here to the right-hand side in the rows section in the formatting. You can actually slide and change so that one column is bigger than the other. Of course, my mouse isn't, there we go. My mouse wasn't cooperating, but you can just take your mouse and there you go, and just sort of slide it. Kind of be careful because before you know it, you can end up with a 1 and an 11. But you'll see how it changes the formats. But if you wanted to use 2 columns and you knew that one column was going to have a lot of verbiage and the other column less, then changing the sizing so that you might have a thinner and a thicker column could really add, again, a nice appeal to your newsletter. Or you can simply move it back and revert it back to 2 equal columns. What I would recommend if you're going to play around with something like this is go ahead and put in your images and your text, your verbiage into the newsletter and then play around and see what you like. And it's very easy to, just like I said, go back to what it was set to initially, which was 2 equal columns. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and delete this section. And I'm going to delete this last section. Okay. I don't need this divider, so I'm going to get rid of that. And now, because I have a section where I deleted the divider, it's kind of left a space holder without any explanation. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Same thing again, just getting rid of the extras at the bottom. The one thing that I want to keep is going to be this gray area. Okay, so here is where I can add some additional information about myself. I can click right here within the gray area and add. You can be, I'm just putting something in here to show you how it works, but you can put in all of these, your office phone, you can put in your office address, whatever pertinent information. But again, just like everything else, you have the ability to go through, change the font size, change the background color, change the font type if you wanted bold versus not bold. Okay, so here we are with our newsletter. So now I'm at the point where I'm content with it. The next thing that I recommend, and even if you're working your way through it and haven't gone completely through an entire newsletter, I always encourage send test. When you send test, it's going to automatically send a sample of the newsletter to you at your EXP email address. Okay. Here, I'm going to go ahead and update template. One of the reasons that I like to do the send test is because I want to make sure before I send out my newsletter that all my links work. So for example, if I take you back to my team newsletter, if I have, I created a sign up genius as an example for using these open house flags. So when I got my test in my email, I actually clicked on the button to make sure that it took me to the sign up genius to be able to sign out the flags. That's important because if your links don't work, it's going to take away from the effectiveness of your piece. Okay. So let's head back to kvCore. So we've gone ahead and we've just created a newsletter in an hour. So again, took me a little bit of time in advance of that hour to prep with all my content, but the actual build itself, once you've done this a couple times, that will be you too, being able to produce a free newsletter in an hour or so. Now, how do you get it out? How do you disseminate it to your those in your CRM? What you can do is you go up to marketing and you go up to all marketing. When you go to all marketing on your kvCore dashboard, you want to scroll down and find scheduled mass emails and click on get started. When you do that, if it's the first time that you're doing it, you're not going to see anything here. The reason that you see something on my screen is because I've sent out regular newsletters, okay? This will tell me when I sent it, what the subject was. It'll tell me what hashtags I used because, and I'll show you this in a minute, I use hashtags to send out my newsletters to reach the people I want to reach. It'll tell me how many it sent, and then I can always go back and view that product, that finished product. In this case, we're going to schedule a new one. So I'm going to click on schedule email. When you click on the schedule, a new window is going to open up. You want to choose, for me, I use contacts with hashtag. So you click on that little circle button till it turns blue. And then once you do that, you can start typing your hashtags right in this field. For my team newsletter, I have two groups. I have connection team and I have connection staff. So I always make sure to include both of those groups here. Then I also have myself entered as a test. So that's the third hashtag that I always use with my newsletter because I always want to make sure that I see, again, what it looks like as a recipient of my final product. In this case, just to show you for purpose of example, I'm just going to choose my test hashtag. So notice I didn't have to actually put the hashtag first. I could just start typing the word test and it found my match. If I wanted to also send this to my connection team or connection staff, just start typing the label of that hashtag and it'll come up with options for you. Okay, but in this case, I'm only going to send it to test. I'm going to leave the scope as me. That the only time that would change is if you were on a team and multiple people were sharing this kvCore account, then you would click on the drop down and choose which agent specifically is going to be credited with this piece. Then you're going to choose the date and time. Just click on the calendar. So I can finish with this now and have it go out over the weekend, have it go out, Sunday morning. Maybe I find that Tuesdays at 5 o'clock are a particularly effective time, whatever the case may be, but you can do all the work in advance and set it up for a future date and time. Times are usually you can pick as soon as a half hour or hour from now. And for the most part, kvCore does a good job of sticking to that schedule. On occasion, I have seen a delay where maybe I might choose 6 o'clock, but I might not see it come into emails until 6:30 or 7 o'clock. But even then, that's a really small discrepancy. We're not talking about, I needed it to go out today and it didn't go out until, Friday, nothing like that. Maybe just minutes of discrepancy. So let's say I pick today, let's say I want it to go out at 4 o'clock. Then we come down to templates. Remember, what did we name it? We named it Deanna Sample Newsletter. So as soon as I click on this box, it's going to remember the most recent project I was working in. But if that wasn't the project I wanted to email, I can simply start typing the word Deanna and it'll come up with options that might match that criteria. But in this case, I'm going to choose Sample Newsletter. As soon as I choose my template, you'll notice that it's going to populate below. And then you want to make sure that you're giving your subject a good, you don't want to be generic, and you want to try to avoid words that end up in people's junk or spam. So in this case, the one thing that I seem to have success with is I call it my jam-packed monthly newsletter. So in this case, let's call it Burlington County Activity Guide. Maybe we call it your Burlington County Activity Guide. Okay, so again, chose my hashtags, chose my date and time, identified the template that I'm going to send, and I made sure to give it a subject line. This is the email subject line that your recipient will see. Then I'm going to go ahead. I'm not going to do any editing here. We've already done all of our editing. So I'm going to go ahead at the very bottom and just hit the schedule button. Once I hit the schedule button, it's going to take me back out to that scheduling page, summarizing all of my scheduled emails. If I decided that I didn't like the newsletter, or I remembered that I forgot something that I wanted to go back and add in, I could simply, as long as it hasn't been sent yet, I could simply come right over to that line and click on the black X to delete that scheduled email, just like this. It'll ask you if you're sure. And once I say yes, you'll see that it removes it from the list. Okay, so again, just always make sure that you're including yourself either among the hashtag groups that you're selecting, or identifying yourself as a test recipient and always including that test hashtag, because you want to be able to see what that looks like on the receiving end. Okay, so we've just worked through building an email, a newsletter email in kvCore. And again, this is something that if you invest time and energy into the technology, other than that, which there's certainly a price tag on your time and on that $85 a month technology, but you've now gotten in front of your sphere without having to incur costs for printing and mailing. This, in combination with other things that you're doing, are going to help you remain relevant and on the top of your client's tongue, if you will, at the top of their thought when they're ready for real estate needs. So I hope that helps. If anyone has any questions, feel free to send them to me at deanna@goconnectionnj.com. Otherwise, I absolutely hope that you get started and try a newsletter of your own. And I encourage you to include me on that distribution, because I would love to see what your final products look like. So again, that's deanna@goconnectionnj.com. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day and week, and happy newsletter building. Thank you so much.